In 1997, after their success on Nickelodeon's All That and Kenan and Kel, Kel Mitchell and Kenan Thompson took their talents and humor to the big screen with the Nickelodeon film Good Burger. Released in 1997, this iconic comedy was based upon a recurring sketch on All That, where Kel Mitchell plays the role as a somewhat dim-witted but always positive employee at a fast food restaurant called Good Burger. Nearly 25 years after the original film, Good Burger 2 is coming out on Paramount Plus this fall. Funny story, actually, I wrote the script for this retrospective like about a week ago, and the second after I was done, Nickelodeon announces that Good Burger 2 is going to be coming out on November 22nd. So to celebrate, I decided to look back on the original Good Burger movie. And now, without any further delays, welcome to Good Burger, home of the Good Burger. Can I take your order? Sorry, I just really got into it. So it starts with our good friend and trusted Good Burger employee Ed asking a customer for her order. As he's putting the order together, the Good Burger comes to life and talks to him. Other Good Burgers pop out of their takeout boxes and tell Ed not to sell them and invite Ed to fly with them. Ed levitates off the ground, but it doesn't last long as he starts to fall into what appears to be a bottomless pit. This is when it's revealed that this is actually just a dream that Ed has, and then he gets ready for his workday. It's kind of odd that he both sleeps and showers in his work uniform, but at least by his logic, it won't get dirty after he's working with all the burgers and all the grease. After he's finished everything, Ed rollerblades his way to work. Without even stopping, he even picks up a jump roper, a baby, and a basketball. Meanwhile, at Good Burger, a customer is frustrated because no one working is taking his order. The customer asks everyone who comes his way to take his order, but Ed is the one whose job it is to take orders. The customer is so annoyed that he threatens to call the manager if he doesn't get to order in 5 seconds. And by the time he finishes counting, Ed makes it to Good Burger and starts taking orders. The customer asks Ed, "Could I please get 2 Good Burgers?" And Ed says, "Sorry dude, I have to go get them. Customers aren't allowed in the back." The customer yells, "Just give me 2 Good Burgers!" And Ed says that he just can't give them to him, he has to pay for them. Ed does have a point. That's the last straw for the customer, and he angrily abandons Good Burger, excited for Mondo Burger to open. After he leaves, Ed wonders what Mondo Burger is. His fellow employee Monique tells him that Mondo Burger is a new burger restaurant that is opening in 3 days across the street from Good Burger, making everyone worry about competition. Manager Mr. Bailey assures his employees that Good Burger isn't going anywhere because people love most of them. Meanwhile, it's the last day of school for teenage slacker Dexter Reed. Dexter plans to spend his summer just lazing around, and right when the final bell rings, his teacher Mr. Wheat stops him and praises him for what a great student he is, and also states that he is worried about him. But Dexter just wants to start his summer vacation and doesn't let Mr. Wheat explain why he is worried about him as he takes off with his mom's car, which he is driving while she's away. Little does she know what Dexter's up to. But regardless, Dexter and his buddy Jake begin their summer vacation. While at Good Burger, Mr. Bailey gets a delivery, and having fired his usual delivery worker, he has Ed handle it. Once again, he rollerblades his way to the address, nearly getting run over by Dexter. Dexter swerves to avoid hitting Ed, but crashes into Mr. Wheat's car. Mr. Wheat is very angry with Dexter over messing up his afro. Really, dude? Just the afro? I'd be a little bit more worried about the car. Not wanting to get in trouble with Mr. Wheat, Jake takes off, and Dexter is left to handle the situation on his own. Dexter explains what happened to Mr. Wheat, saying that it was the fault of some nut on rollerblades, but Mr. Wheat doesn't want to hear any excuses, and is even more surprised that Dexter has no driver's license or insurance, threatening to call the police. Because Dexter is using the car without his mother's knowledge, he begs for Mr. Wheat not to call the cops and offers to fix it himself. Then he learns how much it would cost to fix. $1,900. At least that's less than the car's worth. When Dexter crashes into him, Mr. Wheat very passionately tells him that the car itself is $22,000, but the extra parts for it were also super expensive. Because Dexter doesn't have the money, Mr. Wheat threatens to call Dexter's parents because he knows that Dexter wants to have a lazy summer. Not wanting to get in trouble for driving the car without a license, Dexter chooses to get a summer job to pay Mr. Wheat back. In the next scene, we see Dexter working at Good Burger's competition, Mondo Burger. Burger making there is kind of like being in the military. Like, it's so basic. Bun, patty, toppings, sauce, assemble, and repeat. But Dexter has kind of a hard time putting everything together. The manager, Kurt, is very annoyed by Dexter, going as far as to call him incompetent. Give him a break. He's doing his best, and he's never worked in a burger joint before. Not entirely related to the plot, but the next scene after is one of my favorites. Mr. Bailey finds Ed inside of the milkshake machine trying to fix it, but nothing was really wrong with it. The switch wasn't turned on. So Ed turns on the switch and really enjoys himself. And he heads back inside of the machine and says, "Strawberry jacuzzi!" Meanwhile, across the street, Kurt holds a staff meeting with his Mondo Burger employees, wanting to become popular enough to put Good Burger out of business. He tells everyone, from now on, your life is Mondo Burger. You can forget about your friends, you can forget about your family, because Kurt is now both your mother and your father. Dexter looks at the employee next to him and says, Kurt must look awfully strange naked, but Kurt hears him and angrily fires him, having security haul him out, or as he words it, take out the trash. That's a little rude. Kurt's catchphrase throughout this movie, whenever anybody gets in his way, is, you mess with Kurt, you go in the grinder. Going back to what Kurt said before, is Mondo Burger going to be open 24/7? Like when he said, you know, Mondo Burger is your whole life, you can forget about your friends, your family. Because, like, Kurt should probably get some nighttime workers, because the workers that he has, they gotta sleep eventually. Right after this is my very favorite scene in the whole movie. A customer complains to Ed that he didn't get his order correct. His order was a Good Burger with nothing on it. While Ed claims that that is what he gave him, the customer says that he got a bun without a meat patty. Ed says that a meat patty counts as a something, even asking drive-thru worker Fizz, who agrees that a meat patty counts as a something. So Ed technically did get the order correct. The customer threatens to report Ed's name to the manager, but Ed tells him that the manager already knows his name. The customer angrily leaves, telling Ed, I will see you in hell! And Ed says, alright, see you there! Let's just all be like Ed, not a care in the world. After that little misunderstanding gone wrong, we see Dexter having a ton of good shakes, and Ed brings him another one. Dexter recognizes Ed, but isn't sure where from. You ever been to Australia? No. Me neither. Ed also thinks that maybe Dexter recognizes him because he's famous, like a baseball player or a pretty nurse. That makes Dexter think that Ed's a little weird and asks Ed to leave him alone while he feels depressed about losing his job at Mondo Burger and is unable to come up with the money to fix Mr. Wheat's car, while also being insulted and screamed at by Kurt in the process. Dexter vents to Ed about his problem, and Ed says, boy, you must really suck. Feeling awkward about their encounter, Dexter takes off to look for another job, and Ed offers him a job at Good Burger. Mr. Bailey at first turns him down, but Ed doesn't give up. Ed suggests that Dexter do fries, but the fries are already being handled by Otis. Ed asks, how much longer could he possibly live? Realizing that Ed has a point, Mr. Bailey asks Dexter some questions. Dexter has already had experience working in fast food for 2 days, so Mr. Bailey asks if Dexter knows how to drive, and Dexter tells him that he does. Then he asks if he has ever gotten into an accident, and Dexter's response is, not to your knowledge. Mr. Bailey hires Dexter for deliveries, and Ed introduces Dexter to the staff. Dexter immediately introduces himself to Monique, complimenting her uniform. She says to him, you can imagine how embarrassed I was when I came into work and saw everyone wearing the same thing. It's funny when Dexter tells Ed that Monique is all that. I feel like that's probably a reference to the show that Good Burger originated from. Ed shows Dexter what he's going to be driving for his deliveries, a car with a hamburger for a hood. It kind of reminds me of the paddy wagon from the SpongeBob movie. This one's called the Burger Mobile. Dexter says that he's never driven a sandwich, but remember what SpongeBob told Patrick? You don't need a license to drive a sandwich. In that case, if Dexter had crashed Mr. Wheat's car in that thing, he probably wouldn't have to go through all of this. Ed takes Dexter for a ride in the Burger Mobile, but he goes so fast that he runs a stop sign and hits Mr. Wheat's mailbox. Back at Good Burger, as everyone is getting ready for closing time, Dexter adds up his hours at the restaurant and how much money he will be making, and realizes that it will take him longer than he thought to pay off Mr. Wheat's car. What about the mailbox? And in walks Kurt and his two... Are they supposed to be bodyguards? Like, look at how they're dressed. And immediately he criticizes Good Burger and notices that Dexter works there now. Dexter refers to Kurt as the Mondo Idiot, and Ed says, nice to meet you, Mondo Idiot. I'm Ed. Kurt tells the Good Burger staff that Mondo Burger is set to open tonight and that he plans to run Good Burger out of business. Dexter tells Kurt to either order something or leave, and Kurt says it'll take the very last Good Burger. Later, Kurt opens Mondo Burger across the street and the electricity from the grand opening shuts off the power at Good Burger. I have to admit though, Mondo Burger actually looks super cool, like the design on the outside and the outfits, like it has such a 90s retro vibe to it, and it kind of reminds me a little bit of Pizza Planet from Toy Story. Mondo Burger becomes an instant success with piles of customers coming in for food. It's like a crowd at the Super Bowl or at a Taylor Swift show. With Good Burger having no customers or electricity, Mr. Bailey calls it a day early. Kurt is hopeful that eventually it will be like that permanently. As time passes by, Good Burger loses customers to Mondo Burger, with the Good Burger workers just socializing, waiting for something to happen. Dexter falls asleep in the car waiting for a delivery. Mr. Bailey brings a Mondo Burger to Good Burger, and they notice that the meat patty is humongous. But they charge the same amount as Good Burger does. Realizing that they just use more meat to make the burgers, an employee named Dee Dee says, "Aw, poor cows," because she's a veterinarian. Sorry. She's a vegetarian. Ed makes the same mistake. And I have a feeling that Dee Dee probably feels that same way when she's working. Ed compares a Mondo Burger to a Good Burger, noting that they even sound similar. Mr. Bailey discovers that Good Burger isn't making a lot of money, and feeling sad, he goes home. Dexter still tries to talk to Monique, asking her what her plans are after work. Monique tells him that she's going home, because that's where all her stuff is. Ed rollerblades by and asks Dexter if he wants to hang out tonight. And at that moment, Dexter remembers where he saw Ed as he crashes into Otis. Dexter very angrily tells Ed that he remembers him from the car accident and tells him that he ruined his life. Dexter tells Ed that he doesn't want to hang out with him at all as Otis gets up, asking Dexter to take him to the hospital. The next day at Good Burger, Dexter is having his lunch and in walks a very happy Mr. Wheat, who got his car back from the shop and gives the receipt to Dexter. $2,500. Turns out $1,900 was just an estimate. Mr. Wheat gives Dexter 2.5 months to come up with the money and goes to have lunch at Mondo Burger. Ed sits down across from Dexter, still not picking up on Dexter's anger towards him. But when Ed puts grapes in his nose and starts making noises, Dexter can't help but laugh and lets Ed have lunch with him. Ed opens a jar, and Dexter asks him what it is. Ed tells Dexter that it's his own homemade sauce. He pours it on his Good Burger, but gets some on Dexter by accident. Dexter tastes it and finds that he really likes it. Ed has never shared this recipe with his fellow employees, so Dexter brings the other workers over to taste it, and they all like it too. Even Mr. Bailey likes it. Mr. Bailey asks what's in the sauce, and Dexter answers, "Ed's ingredients," not wanting the recipe to get out because of the competition. Otis says that the sauce makes him glad he's not dead. Dexter tells Ed that if they put the sauce on the Good Burgers and if people love it as much as everyone else does, they'll get to stay open and put Mondo Burger out of business. Mr. Bailey tells Ed to start making sauce. The window of Good Burger even says, "Try our new Ed sauce," and it becomes an instant success. Good Burger starts to get more customers than they had when Mondo Burger opened, all wanting more and more of Ed's sauce. And Dexter gets more and more money to be able to pay off Mr. Wheat's car. Dee Dee can't even carry any more Good Burgers, that's how much they've sold. Back in the kitchen, Ed keeps making sauce and Dexter comes in to see how he's doing. Ed says that because it was Dexter who came up with the idea to put the sauce on the menu, he should get some of Ed's money for the sauce. Dexter is glad that Ed thinks that and has him sign a contract stating that for all of the money Good Burger makes off of the sauce, Ed gets to keep 20% and Dexter gets to keep the other 80%. Personally, I don't think that's entirely fair. Ed made the sauce, it's his recipe, and at the same time it was Dexter's idea to sell it. If they were to share the money, it should absolutely be even. But as we all know, Ed'll agree with anybody, and so he signs the contract. I love when Ed reads the contract, and he's like, "I know some of these words." Dee Dee comes in and praises Ed for his sauce getting more customers and asks him what he puts in the sauce. Ed starts telling Dee Dee the recipe, but Dexter stops him, telling him to keep his recipe a secret in order to keep Good Burger in business. Across the street, Kurt spots that Good Burger has become a success again after 2 days. His henchman and fellow worker Troy tells him that it's because of Ed's sauce, but Kurt already knew that. Still wanting Good Burger shut down, he sends Troy and his other henchman Griffin to figure out what's in the sauce. At the end of the day, Mr. Bailey pays Ed $67 for the sauce. Dexter comes in and takes $54 out of it, leaving Ed with $13. And Ed's pleased with that, because it's almost $14. Before Dexter leaves for the day, Ed invites him to hang out with him at his secret place up on the roof, Ed's thinking spot. Dexter says, "I never took you for much of a thinker." Because Ed is so positive, Dexter asks Ed if he has any problems, and Ed's only problem is that he has 6 toes on his left foot. Ed asks Dexter what kind of problems he has. Apart from Dexter's car accident and having to work at Good Burger because he nearly ran over Ed, he has many problems that started when he was a child. He and his mom have moved so many times since his father left, and recalls the last time he saw his dad. Dexter tells Ed a story from when he was 7 and his dad bought him a yo-yo that lit up and would whistle when he used it. But he used it so much that it stopped working and his mom threw it away. Dexter tells Ed that he doesn't remember what his dad looks like, and apparently, Ed also doesn't remember what his dad looks like. But at least I get to see him every day. Dexter leaves to go home and Ed thanks him for spending time with him. Dexter says, "See you tomorrow, buddy!" And Ed is very happy to hear that. The next day, Dexter gets a delivery that he gets very excited about and invites Monique to tag along. And Ed offers to go instead. Dexter isn't too excited about that, and Ed drives him and Dexter to the address, driving around every other car they come across, and even driving into the address, the iconic Great Western Forum in LA. Ed and Dexter head to the dressing room of Shaquille O'Neal. That's not a joke, the one and only Shaquille O'Neal himself. The press asks him how he feels about making it to the NBA championship, and Shaq says, "I feel hungry." At that very moment, Ed and Dexter show up with Shaq's order, and the two are beyond excited to see who they're delivering to. The pair run over to give Shaq a hug and his good burger. The only thing that's missing from the burger is tomatoes, which Ed kept in his pocket. While on camera, Shaq takes a bite out of the good burger with Ed and Dexter right there. Dexter tells him to tell them what he thinks of Ed's sauce. He says that he likes it, and the reporter tells it to the camera, much to the annoyance of Kurt and his posse. Still wanting to have more success than Good Burger, Kurt orders his staff to make the Mondo Burgers bigger, but it's the sauce that they don't have. While rollerblading his way to work, Ed crashes into Kurt driving his way to work as well. Kurt offers to drive Ed to Good Burger. Ed accepts, and Kurt offers him a job at Mondo Burger for more money than Mr. Bailey is paying him. He asks him, "How does $10 sound?" Ed puts a $10 bill up to his ear and tells Kurt that it sounds like... Annoyed, Kurt offers him the Mondo Burger job again, this time actually saying it, but Ed still has a hard time getting the message across. Kurt drops Ed off and says, "Whenever you're ready to come and work for me, you say the word." When Ed and Kurt part ways, Dexter stops him and asks Ed why he was with Kurt. Ed tells Dexter that he was offered a job at Mondo Burger, but Dexter knows that he only wants Ed for the sauce and reminds Ed not to share the recipe. Before they start work, Ed gives Dexter a present, a yo-yo identical to the one that his dad gave him as a child. Not wanting to give up on Ed's sauce, Kurt has Troy and Griffin bring in Roxanne. The very next day at Good Burger, the employees notice Roxanne, unaware of who she is, and Ed asks to take her order. But all Roxanne wants to see is Ed, and she calls him hot. Ed says that he often sweats at work. Roxanne asks Ed out on a date, and Ed accepts. Dexter is very impressed by this, and Ed asks Dexter if he wants to join them. Dexter declines, and Ed suggests that he ask Monique. Ed can tell that Dexter likes her, but Dexter's too nervous to ask her out, although he doesn't want to admit it. Ed calls Dexter chicken and moos at him. Wrong animal, dude. Anyway, knowing that Dexter's too nervous to ask Monique, Ed asks her for him, and Monique accepts. Ed, Roxanne, Dexter, and Monique double date at some Chuck E. Cheese type place. Kind of reminds me of the Palladium that we have here that I showed in another video. And they have some corn dogs. Ed shows Roxanne to her chair and pulls it too far away from her that she plops onto the floor. Ed asks if Roxanne is okay, and after she says that she is, Ed tells everyone in the restaurant, "It's okay, people! Her butt is fine!" I love that Ed wears a tie. I think that's the first time I saw him wear something to go with his Good Burger uniform. Everyone enjoys the corn dogs, and Roxanne says that Ed's sauce will go great with them, and she asks him how he makes it. Ed does start to answer the question, but Dexter stops him by kicking Roxanne's foot. To take the attention away, Dexter suggests that they play mini-golf. Dexter and Monique take off, but Roxanne prefers to be alone with Ed. Doesn't that sound more fun than miniature golf? But Ed answers, "No," and they follow Dexter and Monique. Dexter and Monique both miss the hole, and then when it's Ed's turn, he swings his club so hard that it hits Roxanne, and he hits the ball so hard that it comes all the way back and knocks Roxanne out, with her staying unconscious for the drive back. When the gang arrives at Good Burger, Roxanne wakes up and has no recollection of what happened. Ed recalls, "Your head hit my golf ball, then you went sleepy by." Monique and Dexter take off, and on the way home reveal their true feelings towards each other. Monique likes Dexter, and Dexter knew from the first time he saw her that he liked her, but Monique didn't feel that right away. But because of how kindly Ed talks about Dexter, Monique decided to give him a chance. Meanwhile, Roxanne tries to coax Ed to give her the recipe for his special sauce, offering anything he wants. Roxanne leans in for a kiss, but Ed throws her the other way. Roxanne comes back to Mondo Burger with bandages and a crutch and quits, angry that the plan didn't work. Back at Good Burger, Ed gets a very large order from a very fast-talking customer, played by Lori Beth Denberg of All That, the host of Vital Information and also the loud librarian. She talks so fast and orders so much that Ed shuts down. When Dexter arrives at work, he asks Monique out on a second date, and Monique turns him down. Dexter's confused by this, and Monique explains that Dexter forgot his jacket and his contract with Ed fell out of the pocket. Dexter tries to make up an excuse, but Monique already knows what's happening, feeling that Dexter is taking advantage of Ed. Angry, Monique tells Dexter that if she told Ed, it would hurt him too much. Even Otis thinks that Dexter's a bad friend. Dexter finds Ed out back having a Mondo Burger. Why is he eating the competition? And tries to tell him the truth, but a dog shows up and barks at Ed. Ed translates the barking as a clown car broken down with 4 clowns still in it, but Dexter tells Ed that the dog is just hungry and can see that Ed has food. Ed places the Mondo Burger in front of the dog, but the dog doesn't take it. So he gives the dog a good burger instead, and the dog takes it. Ed then suspects that something is wrong with Mondo Burger, and Dexter agrees. As they head there, it turns out that 4 clowns actually were stranded with a broken car and were awaiting the dog to return. Dexter and Ed arrive at Mondo Burger in female disguises, with Dexter asking for the bathroom. An employee offers to take him there, but Dexter slaps him away and fakes dehydration. The employee goes to get water, and Dexter and Ed head to the kitchen. I think this is the first time in the whole movie I've seen Ed wear something other than his uniform. In the kitchen, an employee drops triamphethol on ordinarily sized meat patties, making the Mondo Burgers grow to the size that they are. Dexter and Ed look through the window and notice, stating that it must be illegal. And from behind them, Kurt confirms that to be a fact. Kurt has Griffin and Troy bring Dexter and Ed into the kitchen to show them, and Dexter has concerns about giving customers food with an illegal chemical in it. Kurt states that he doesn't care and has his henchmen strip them of their disguises. But Ed actually didn't have his uniform underneath it, and everyone laughs at him. Dexter stops them by telling Kurt that when his customers figure out what's in the burgers, he could get arrested. Dexter asks, "What do you expect us to do, keep our mouths shut?" Kurt says that he'll do it for them. Before they can escape, Kurt corners Ed and demands that he know what's in Ed's sauce. Ed tells Kurt that he needs a Tic Tac, and that's the last straw for Kurt. Kurt sends the two to an asylum, and they are locked in a room together. Okay, is that really necessary? Ed finds himself enjoying literally bouncing off the walls. Back at Good Burger, Mr. Bailey and the staff grow really concerned that Dexter and Ed haven't shown up yet. Ed still enjoys the asylum, and a patient named Heather goes over to him and asks if small space aliens have ever landed in his brain and told him to break into the zoo and free the kangaroos. Ed isn't sure of that, and Heather asks Ed if he thinks she's cute. When Ed agrees, she wants to know what is cute about her. Ed answers her head, and Heather says that Ed as well has a cute head, and tells him that she likes him. Dexter, on the other hand, is not enjoying himself, while Ed keeps making friends, letting one man out of a straitjacket and causing the workers to panic. Back at Good Burger, after closing time, Kurt and his crew break in to once again try to steal Ed's sauce. They manage to take a pot of sauce out of the fridge and squirt a toxin called shark poison into it, but Otis catches them. Kurt tells Otis his plan: squirt it into the sauce and make customers so sick that nobody will come back for it. Otis threatens to call the cops, but Kurt has him sent to the asylum as well. Dexter and Ed reunite with Otis and ask him what happened. Otis tells them, and they try to figure out how to break out. With only 4 hours until Good Burger opens, Dexter figures out a plan. The first step is Ed changing the music to get everyone dancing. Dexter and Otis find this kind of bizarre, but with the guards watching the dancing, Dexter starts up a conversation with them to try to get them to join in. The guards tell Dexter that it's against regulation, but Dexter notices that they can't stop bobbing their heads to the music and finally convinces them to dance. While dancing, Dexter knocks the guards unconscious and steals the key. Ed, Otis, and Heather follow after him out of the asylum, but before they break out, they get startled by a patient. Heather warns them not to make any sudden moves, but Ed starts to get friendly with the patient. Just when they think they can get out, their escape gets noticed and announced over the PA, warning staff to seal the doors. Dexter tries to open a window, but Heather informs him that they are sealed with bulletproof glass. Dexter asks the patient for him, and the patient opens the windows by throwing Dexter through it. Hearing staff try to get into the room, Otis jumps out of the window. Before Ed follows after him, he and Heather share their goodbyes. Ed leaps onto a bed and jumps out of the other window, and the group is now free, and they make their way back to Good Burger, stealing an ice cream truck on the way. The ice cream man is giving ice cream to some kids and notices the group getting in, asking what they are doing. Otis says, "Stealing your truck!" Dexter promises that they will return it, but all of the ice cream in the back spills out. Them driving by captures the attention of kids that they pass, who chase after the truck, and right on their tail is a truck from the asylum. Before they can make it, Good Burger opens and everyone gets ready for a new day. Unaware of what has happened, the head fry cook Spatch starts to get Ed's sauce ready. With the group still being chased, Ed gets distracted by all of the ice cream. Dexter then has an idea and asks Ed to give him an ice cream cone, which he throws on the windshield of the asylum's truck behind them. And the more that they throw, the less they can see. Mr. Weed, on the other hand, is very happy that he got a new mailbox. The ice cream truck manages to avoid hitting it, swerving between that and a construction site, but because of the ice cream on the windshield, the asylum truck drives over the dirt pile from the site like a ramp and crushes Mr. Wheat's new mailbox. With Ed absent, Monique takes orders as Good Burger gets its first customers of the day. The customers order one Good Burger for each of them with extra sauce. Dexter speeds up the drive as the customers get their Good Burgers, but before one of the customers eats it, she realizes that there's no mustard on it. So she puts mustard on it and is about to take a bite before Ed shows up and tackles her, stopping her from eating it. Mr. Bailey puts a stop to that just as Dexter comes in. Mr. Bailey has no idea what's going on, so Dexter explains that Kurt poisoned the sauce. Mr. Bailey doesn't believe him, but Dexter tells him that he'll explain it to him later, telling Mr. Bailey to keep customers from eating the sauce and to call the police. Dexter takes Ed to get a can of triamethol for evidence. After Dexter and Ed leave, Otis comes in and says, "I need a hot jacuzzi." Yeah, I'm gonna say the line, "Strawberry jacuzzi!" The pair head to Mondo Burger and try to figure out how they're gonna sneak into the kitchen to get the triamethol. Ed climbs up the delivery truck and onto the roof of the restaurant, very Mission Impossible-like. Dexter climbs up the truck and is a bit nervous to jump to the drain pipe, but then the delivery truck starts, and as it takes off, Dexter successfully manages to jump and climbs to the roof. Ed made his way to the straw of the shake on the roof, which kind of is like a little chimney. Ed tells Dexter that he can see the kitchen from the straw. Ed tells Dexter to join him, but Dexter doesn't think it's as easy for him as it is for Ed. Dexter makes it to the straw, and Ed pulls him down. The two slide down a chute. Oh, okay, I thought it was a chimney, but it's actually a chute. I mean, it could be both. But anyway, the two slide down a chute and land in a bin full of Mondo Burger uniforms. Dexter's plan is to go into the kitchen while Ed counts to 10, and after that, come into the kitchen and get a can of triamethol so they can bring it back to Good Burger. Dexter makes it to the kitchen and gets noticed by Troy and Griffin. Dexter compliments the kitchen to distract them so that Ed can get the chemical. To further distract them, Dexter squirts ketchup and mustard in their faces and has the Mondo Burger crew chase him. With them now distracted, Ed sneaks into the kitchen, and when he gets his hands on the triamethol, he knocks it over and knocks over a bunch of others like dominoes. But one falls off of the shelf and lands in a machine, and the can opens. Ed pours another can into the machine. But on the roof, Dexter gets cornered by the Mondo Burger staff, and Kurt joins them. Kurt tells Dexter that the game is over, but Dexter hits him with the Uno reverse card and tells Kurt what they're up to. Ed brings the triamethol can to Dexter in front of Kurt, who has his staff take it from him. But the can is empty. Dexter's not pleased that he stole an empty can, but Ed tells him, "It wasn't empty when I found it." Back in the kitchen, the Mondo Burgers have grown bigger and bigger, with 2 cans of the chemical now in the machine. As counter staff are preparing them for their customers, some of them explode. As the customers are beginning to sit down and enjoy their Mondo Burgers, the ground shakes and everyone leaves. Concerned, Kurt and his gang head back to the kitchen, and Dexter and Ed head back to Good Burger as the display on the roof shakes. In the kitchen, Kurt notices a gigantic Mondo Burger shaking, but he can't do anything to fix it before it explodes. As all of the customers race out in terror, the inside of Mondo Burger starts to fall apart. And as everyone's leaving, Mr. Wheat drives in. He notices everyone racing out, but doesn't realize what's going on. Before he can go in, the burger from the display on the roof slips off and lands on the roof of Mr. Wheat's car, just after he got it fixed. I don't even know who we should blame for that one, Ed for putting more of the chemical in the burgers causing them to explode, or Kurt for using the chemical in the burgers in the first place. At least it's not Dexter's fault this time. Meanwhile, 911 shows up at Mondo Burger, and Dexter and Ed hitch a ride on a fire truck. Kurt gets arrested by police and tries to convince them that it wasn't his fault, but Dexter tells the police that Kurt made Mondo Burgers using an illegal chemical, as a police officer takes a humongous burger out of the restaurant. Kurt denies using triamethol, but another officer found unopened cans and Kurt is taken away. Dexter notices Mr. Wheat trying to get the display burger off of his car, and Dexter goes over to talk to him, giving him half of the money that he owes him, leaving him to get the burger off alone and also without a car. As Ed and Dexter walk away, Ed tells Dexter what his plan was. If he took the can, he figured that he would get in trouble for having illegal triamethol in his possession, and that Kurt would probably find an attorney to dispute him having it. So he poured the chemical into the machine to show people what Kurt's been doing. Dexter is really impressed by Ed's plan and decides to forego their previous contract, letting Ed keep all of the money for his sauce. I mean, he doesn't owe Mr. Wheat anything now. Ed tells Dexter that he will miss him and gets emotional, but Dexter tells Ed that he isn't going anywhere. The two head back to Good Burger, and the staff applaud and praise them for shutting down Mondo Burger and keeping Good Burger in business. They chant Ed's name, and he says, "What?" every time, so it kind of sounds like, "Ed, what? Ed, what? Ed, what?" The staff tries to get Ed to say something, and Ed says that there is only one thing to say. "Welcome to Good Burger, home of the Good Burger. Can I take your order?" And that's it. Good Burger, one of the most iconic movies of the 90s. What did you think of it? Are you guys excited for Good Burger 2? I know I am. I wonder what Ed and Dexter are going to get themselves into this time. And also, if you had the choice, would you eat at Good Burger or Mondo Burger? So anyway, I hope you enjoyed hearing me talk about Good Burger, and I'll see you later.